My conversation today on Inside the Wounds is with Zach Munowitz, and this is part 2. Today, we're talking about how we utilize raw emotions in the songwriting process and how we go about controlling those emotions to work for us rather than letting them work against us. I'm Joaquin Rodriguez, and this is Inside the Wounds with Zach Munowitz. Well, here we are, round 2.
We are back. Thank you for having me back, man.
Yeah, dude. Well, thanks for being back, dude. But I know this time it's going to be a little bit different. You know, I know today we're focusing more on the vulnerability and just like how that plays a role in the aspect like of our music. So, I mean, I'm ready to dive into some personal stories too, man. If that's cool with you.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome, dude. I mean, I'll kick us off. You know, I really do feel like my most uncomfortable feeling this far in my music career, well, actually, even just let's just say artist career, because I think this also goes with videography, has been growing up in front of strangers. One of the things like I'll be completely open about is like, you know, I've been really vulnerable with stuff when it comes with the band. Like I've been really transparent, like with Fatal Laceration, and I've been really transparent about the growing pains. And I guess what I mean by that is I feel like our Fatal Laceration is still a brand new band. It's still in its infancy. And technically, we debuted in 2020. But of course, you know, there was the pandemic. You know, all operations shut down. We restructured the band. And what you're hearing now with the Gloom EP, I feel like is a re-debut. And you know what, though? It's us figuring it out. Right. And it's a terrifying feeling to basically learn how to walk in front of strangers and be like judged like by it, right? Mm-hmm. While the whole world is watching. But it's a beautiful thing too, man, because like that leaves opportunity for people to watch you grow, your fan base to watch you grow, especially for those who have been there like from the very beginning. Yeah, that's exciting to me. That is super exciting for me. And you know, we have an EP coming out at the fall of 2024, and you get to see the growth between that and the Gloom EP. And even now, we're currently writing an EP that we hope that comes out in spring of 2025. And at that one in particular, I think is us finally figuring out our signature sound.
I'm stoked to hear it.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. I guess point of me saying all that, it's like growing and fucking up in front of strangers is scary, especially when it's something that you're extremely passionate about. But I'm still trying to convince myself that that's okay.
It is very much okay. I feel like everyone has seen me grow up via social media since I started putting out music in like 2015, and it sucked. Took all of it down, you know. But everyone saw that growth like from the very beginning, and conquering, you know, my fear of like filming myself, like being on camera took a long time to be comfortable with even, and like I'm still like a little awkward in front of the camera, but like everyone has seen that has followed me for a long time. And so it's a lot of insecurity to conquer. I still like I have this like forehead vein that goes like this, and you can see it in like certain lighting if I like smile, and I'm still like self-conscious about that. And there's a lot of vulnerability in like the little things like that people might not even see, but it's all there. It's all being like documented on social media. So it's cool to like, I can scroll back and it's like, you know, kind of snapshots of my life in different points, even if it is like a highlight reel of like the cool stuff I'm making or whatever. I can see like on my face and body language like that I have grown a lot, and it's hard to be aware of that in the moment, but when you look back it's like a totally different person. I think there's something kind of special about that, like keeping sort of like a log on social media of just like what you've done.
Totally. I actually have 2 questions for you based off that. I I'm super curious on your opinion about this because you just mentioned that you started releasing music online in 2015, but you took it down. It's to be honest, man, like I've kind of thought the same thing in terms of like, okay, once we do get to a certain point, you know, I mentioned the whole we found our signature sound now, like
Right.
this is us. Like, do I go back and delete some of the like the very beginning stuff, like the very first EP? But it's like that's crossed my mind a lot. But at the same time, like I see that there's still some people that go in there and listen to those songs routinely, like every week, and it's like, do I take that away from people? You know what I mean? Do I take that away from them? Because it seems like they're enjoying that on a regular basis. Like
Right.
it's such a weird thing, man. Because it's like it's self-conscious thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
fuck, I'm not there anymore. Thank God I'm not there anymore. But damn it, it still exists.
Yeah, I mean, I took down everything from 2015 to 2019. I
Yeah.
didn't feel like it represented me as a person and like as an artist, and that's basically why I took it down. But people were like, dude, like I used to listen to this like all the time, you
Yeah.
know, like the few fans that I do have that listen to that stuff regularly. And it was funny because it's just like, this isn't like, it doesn't feel like me anymore listening back to it. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, totally. And you did also mention, you know, looking back at some of the old stuff that you did, like video wise, it sounds like looking at those as like, you know, the highlights or what have you. Do you ever go back and look at things and maybe like look at it as game film, like break things down? Let's like, okay, really dig what I was doing there. Didn't like this. Cause I mean, obviously you get to see the stuff that you're cutting out of the videos.
Yeah.
Right. So like, are you able to like look at that and like critique yourself in a kind way, but like just game plan from it?
Yeah. It's just been like trial and error. Not even like what performs the best, but like what I feel represents me the best and like what feels the most genuine. You know, I started with like the photo booth app on
Yeah.
my Mac, you know,
Yeah.
and that's all I had. And then I moved up to like a little like point and shoot, and was using my iPhone and stuff. And I shoot on my camera, and it feels like the most me. But it's just a result of like pulling from, you know, everything that I thought sucked and everything that I thought was good, and you know, putting that into something that feels like the best representation of myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it took a while. There's videos on like Facebook that I see like in my memories sometimes from like 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to watch back because like it's just so like raw. Like it's just me like as an 8th grader with like photo booth on my Mac, like playing like just guitar with like the built-in microphone, and it's just like, it's so cool to see where you came from, you know, or like how it all started.
Totally, dude. Dude, Facebook memories is a hell of a thing, right? Especially when it shows you things where it's like, I didn't want to see that. What the hell? I've had those like too many times. Like, where are you even getting this from? I thought I deleted this, you know?
Those videos, like the first, you know, the first videos of me like messing around with stuff, like I'm not gonna take those down because I love watching them back, and I love like showing other people them, even though it's like, you know, like cringy and shit. Like it's me, and it's like I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't start there, you know.
100%. Yep. Dude, totally. Yeah, dude. And I know in our last episode, you talked about how you don't like, you know, like failing in front of people, right? And have you been in situations where you've had to fail publicly, like as a musician, in order to reach that next step in your music career?
I wouldn't say there's anywhere I've like had to fail, but I've needed to fail a lot, like personally, to become more confident with what I'm putting out. You know, I'll be filming something and just like I can't get the right take, and like I don't like the way I look, and like the lighting's not right. Like I'm so particular with stuff, and to me those are, I guess like the biggest failures like that I've experienced is like the small particularities that like I don't like gel with. Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but those feel like the most impactful like failures. I call them failures because I feel like it's not the best version of myself that I could be putting out, but it's just it makes me feel like I failed, even though I'm just I could put it out and people would be like, this is fine.
Yeah.
But like when you're really particular with like what you're doing, it feels like failing in front of people.
Right.
And in front of the camera, like if I can't get like a line of dialogue right, or like I can't find the right wording, like little things like that, it feels like I'm failing, even though other people like wouldn't see it as that.
Exactly, bro. I have 3 little small stories I could share with you where I feel like I've failed publicly as a musician, but it was like it had to happen. It had to happen. Oh, dude, this is gonna be embarrassing. So I hope you're ready. Okay.
No judgment. No judgment.
Oh, dude, it's so far in the past. Like I don't even care anymore, dude. Okay, so this was my freshman year of high school. Okay, was it my? Yeah, I think it was my freshman year of high school. I was highly encouraged by a what do they call them? Like your school counselor, like the people who help you like build your schedules and stuff. He found out that I'm a musician. I'm a very passionate guitar player. And he's like, you should join jazz band. That would be a great opportunity for you, like, to meet like potential band members, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I don't really play any of that stuff, like, at all. And whatever. I was convinced to do it. And I think it was like the second day of that class where what they were doing is like, they had like every single person there like do like have like a solo section like during like a certain like beat or whatever. And mind you, I brought a guitar. They told me not to worry about a guitar amp. There was not a guitar amp there. I think you know where this is going. So when it came like to my turn, dude, I'm not plugged in. This is an electric guitar, bro. And so, like, it's my turn, and, like, the instructor's looking at me. I'm like, and now everybody's doing this. Like looking at me, right? I'm like, oh, no. One of, like, to make matters worse, my first crush in high school was in that class. And, like, I knew she liked me.
That's the worst, bro.
I knew she liked me. And ever since that day when I just feel like I got like embarrassed in front of like the whole class of like good musicians, she didn't like me after that. Let me just put it that way. Bro, you know what though? It's things like that make me feel like, dude, I never want to feel this again. Like preparation, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like that was shitty. Another story, very similar. Fuck, dude, I don't even know how old I was. I know I was like my very early 20s, maybe 18, 19, 20, something like that. I went on a date with this girl. After our date, we went into like my studio at the time, and basically I was like, okay, I'm going to play some of our songs for her that we have written at the time. Bro, I botched it. I botched it bad. Dude, again, man, like embarrassing yourself like in front of like somebody that you think's like really cute or something like that. That triggered something in me. I'm like, bro, this isn't going to happen again. So ever since that moment, I would text like family members, friends, be like, yo, dude, I need to get better. I got to get better at playing in front of people. This weekend. Are you able to come over? I want to play a whole set and just me in front of you. You're sitting right in front of me and I'm playing a whole set. I did that for like a month or two. And just like every weekend I had somebody else new come into the studio, me just performing in front of them.
That's great.
That way, I would never be in that situation again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that sounds super helpful.
Yeah, dude. The last story that I have where I feel like this wasn't publicly embarrassing myself, but I've talked about this in a few other episodes of this podcast. The very first time I officially went to a studio, like with our producer, Jordan Lockery, bro, like I went into the studio feeling like very confident as a guitar player. I felt like, yep, I'm feeling good. I can play well to a click. I'm confident in what I've written. Oh my God, bro. Jordan kicked my ass, bro. Kicked my ass. Which most beautiful thing that could have happened, dude. Because again, it's that thing where it's like I knew how frustrated I was. I mean, like I was still very much, had control of myself, my emotions and everything. But it's like, dude, I don't want that to happen again. And so like I knew how to prepare. Like I knew what he wanted, what he expected, like out of a studio session. So when we went there to record the Gloom EP, bro, it was so smooth. It was so smooth. And that's because I put in the work. You learn from getting your ass kicked, bro.
Yeah.
Fucking learn from getting your ass kicked.
No, totally. That's the best way to humble yourself real quick.
That's a great way to put it, humbling yourself.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, my guitar lessons like at Berkeley humbled me real quick. I was already humble going into them, and they they really showed me how much I actually knew, which is not a lot.
Yeah, dude, totally, dude. But yeah, man, to go back to like you were mentioning this, like stuff like the videos that you've released and everything. Dude, I feel like in all your platforms, like all the immune like platforms, it's like so fucking clean, bro. And you definitely have a signature look that fits well, like for you. You know what I mean? And your production sounds great. And I'm just gonna take a wild guess and assume that you've always had the vision on what you wanted it to look like, but probably in the beginning you probably weren't able to execute it right off the bat.
Mm-mm.
No?
No, I did not have the tools. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's my point. Like, I guess in the really beginning, like, all right, you said you don't have the tools or anything like that. Did that like bother you? Like knowing like, okay, like maybe you knew kind of what you wanted to achieve, but you didn't have the tools yet? Or like, I guess like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I kind of knew like what I wanted to strive for, more or less. Like I wanted my stuff to like look like somebody shot it with like a good camera, and I wanted that from like the very beginning, and I couldn't get the right look for so long, but I would just work with what I had, my little like crappy point and shoot camera, like just making it work with what I had. And I learned so much from doing that, because when I did upgrade to like like an actual mirrorless, everything was so much easier, and like the lighting made a lot more sense because I had to work with what I had for so long. But yeah, I always kind of had the vision of like making my stuff look the way it does now, but I've pulled so much inspiration from like my buddies on Instagram, like Clayton King and Joseph Anajar. Like just the way their videos look is just like amazing, and so I've just like took a lot of inspiration from that, and I don't think my stuff would look exactly the way it does without people like that,
Right. Yeah, I feel that, and I think I said this last episode too. Like you've been that for me too. Like looking at your stuff, I'm like, shit, I need my stuff to start looking a bit better. And but that's great, man. Like first and foremost, like I was very much, what hooked me in was the guitar playing, the music itself, right? But then like the visuals like kept me there. You know what I mean? So it's definitely been inspirational, like watching like you, and like motivation, like for the same thing that what you just mentioned. So you've certainly been that for me.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. That's like so cool to hear. I just feel like I want to do like the music justice with the way it looks, and guys out there can like Spiro Ducius, like he could just film himself with an iPhone playing like a lick, and it's like the greatest thing you've ever heard, and like you don't have to do that justice. Like, you are doing it justice with just an iPhone, because that's what it is. It's just a raw thing. But I feel like for my stuff, it really needs like the visual element to like kind of take it to that like next level, because it's not always the most like technical thing or like the most raw performances. You know what I mean? So it sort of like needs that. But like I love just like shooting stuff raw too, like on an iPhone sometimes. It's just like really different ways of making content and like thinking about it. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Some people prefer that, and I did like polls on my Instagram stories, and like most people, like on my account at least, they like stuff shot with the camera.
Okay.
But it doesn't always perform the best.
And did you edit it the same, like color it the same and everything, or did you just do the iPhone footage just raw?
I'll just like post stuff from my iPhone. Sometimes I'll put like an Instagram filter on it. I don't do that as often, but like there's some stuff on my feed that's like that. People don't like it as much, but it does perform better to like non-followers, which is kind of interesting.
Makes sense. I mean, people are used to that look, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like what they expect, you know?
Yeah, the stuff that like feels the most real is like what I personally connect with when I'm watching other people. So it's kind of funny that like the way I want to present myself is not what I prefer to see other people do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, for sure. This is just totally a random question for me. What do you use like for video editing? Do you use DaVinci, Premiere, Final Cut?
It's all Final Cut, and then I run something called Dehancer, which is like film emulation software, and I'll use that for like all the grain and like halation and like, you know, the sort of glowy, like filmy look that a lot of people are doing.
Yeah.
So it's like a plugin within Final Cut.
Oh, interesting. Okay, nice. I use DaVinci, but yeah, dude.
I've heard DaVinci is way better in a lot of ways.
Dude, the coloring for sure. Coloring in particular.
Yeah, and those like effects I was talking about, I think are just like built in to DaVinci. Like you don't need all these like third-party plugins and stuff.
Right. Well, cool. But yeah, dude. Kind of along the same topic. What's been the scariest part about your music career thus far?
The scariest part has been it's been like making sure that what I'm putting out is fully genuine, and like second guessing whether it's like me enough to put out, or whether I'm trying to just like do something like hard or do something like cool, like for the sake of being cool, and it's not genuine enough. I feel like that's like a scary thing to deal with, like every time I post. I don't struggle with it as much anymore. Now it's kind of just like I do whatever I want to do and like try not to overthink it. But it was like that for a long time. Like I'm not really scared of like putting myself out there. Like I've been doing it for a while, that like I'm not really scared of that. I'm not really scared what people are going to think about it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just like on a personal level, the fear of like not putting out the truest version of who I am in like the music I'm doing.
Right.
I feel like not a lot of people feel that way, but maybe they do.
Yeah. Dude, I'm with you. But I know what you mean, but I'm curious, like, what does genuine mean to you? Like, what's your definition of that? Like, let's just do there. Like, well, what does genuine mean to you?
It feels like you. Like, it feels like yourself in like a different form, like in a different format. Like when you put out something that's like so like emotionally driven and like is real and raw, like that feels different than putting something out because you think it'll like impress people, or because it's like showy, you know? Like it feels very different putting those two things out to the world. And I feel like that's the best way I can distinguish them.
Sure.
And it always feels better when it comes from a place that's like real. And yeah, I'm glad I'm not like a fast or flashy player, because I would just be trying to impress people all day long on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm
Totally.
not that, so I don't know.
For sure, I'm not that either. So, dude, and for me, dude, I think like I'm so obsessed with achieving my purpose that I put so much energy into like overthinking, and I end up falling apart. Like I'm killing myself from the inside just by overthinking.
Right.
And another piece of that is like I've seen a lot of growth like in my skills and my ability like to make money from those skills and everything like that. But it's crazy because the flip side of that is that I easily get dissatisfied with the parts of my life that I no longer want to exist. And that just goes back to having an issue with patience. And I guess what I mean by that, it's like, okay, I'm seeing the skills come up, right? But what's the payoff for it? Like, where's that blue ribbon? You know what I mean? And that's all a mindset thing. That's all, again, an issue with patience. And that's something that I'm trying to work on, right? Because like to me, I kind of have like a bit more of like the sports mentality. I do come from a sports background too, but it's like bro, like when you're like on the field, you can put up some amazing stats, but if you don't win that game, what does that matter? And like, unfortunately, I have that mindset with everything. And I've been trying to teach myself to get out of that. Like sometimes it's been helpful, right? Because I'm naturally competitive, but holy shit, dude. Like just the overthinking, just like the self-doubt, just like beating yourself up, like the stuff that comes with that, the negativity that comes with that, can sometimes be a little bit paralyzing.
Yeah, it's very tricky, and that's been like an exact struggle that I've had for a long time. I think it was probably the worst when I was looking for like a full-time job, like like right after the pandemic started. And before I ended up at Reverb, it was like a year and a half of job searching and like trying to find any connections I had, and that took so much patience, and like the self-doubt that I had like in that period was unreal. And just like like you have your resume in front of you or whatever and your cover letters, but it doesn't represent like how you feel about yourself. It's just, here's what I've done. You want other people to think that like you're really confident in those skills, but it's totally different, from the inside out. That was a tough period, but it pays off, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, dude.
It just takes time for some things.
For sure. And I can relate to that exact same thing too, because, as soon as that pandemic hit, I got laid off, and it took a while, bro. It took a while to get a job after that. And what kind of felt shitty too is that, I graduated college in 2019, December of 2019. So we're talking about like right before everything went down. And like during my senior year of college, I was fortunate enough to like get into working for like a pretty big tattoo shop, like doing like marketing stuff. And that's great. That's kind of how it all started for me in terms of just like doing the video and all that type of stuff. That turned into like me meeting a connection that owns a tattoo shop in Oregon, started working for them. And that was going to turn into me being a manager for the shop and still creating stuff. Boom, pandemic hit, extreme nosedive. You know what I mean? Like I was really quickly going up in my career and really happy with my career. Then the pandemic happens, right? And just like, whew, bro, that's a crazy thing, man. Like it's a crazy thing when you're getting success and it's just fucking taken from you. Like that took years to get over, dude. That took fucking years to get over. But yeah, dude, like I feel that like you mentioned, like, were you like unemployed for a while, like during the pandemic and everything, or were you like an essential worker, as they call it?
So I graduated May of 2020. So like I graduated
Oh,
from college like right when it started, and then
gotcha.
I was at my parents' house just like applying to like a different position like every day for like
Yeah,
a long time.
right. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Gotcha. I forget you're younger than me, so
just a little bit, just a little bit.
just a little bit.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
I'm gonna be in that place probably at some point, being set back in my career, and I feel like there's nothing that can really prepare you for that, But it sounds like you learned a lot from it.
dude, totally, dude. And I'll say this, like, you can prepare for it. Like, you have to go through it first to
Right.
be able like to prepare like for it if it happens again. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
definitely know like like how to. Hopefully, like when that happens and you build yourself back up, you're creating like some safety nets for yourself just in case if something like that does
Right.
happen. You know what I mean? But, and mind you, I was still very young during that time anyway. So like that, I don't know, those skill sets weren't as valuable as they are now. You know what I mean? So luckily you're already at a point where it's like, bro, you've already like built a name for yourself. You've already done this and that, where like if you did get some stuff taken away from you, it's not like you're fucking nose diving to point zero. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you've already gotten, in my opinion, gotten far enough to like be able to like kind of pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and kind of like keep going,
Yeah, I mean, it's, like if I got like laid off today, like it would be tough. Like I make like a side income from like the mixing and mastering work I do, but it wouldn't be enough to just like support me, by itself. So, very grateful to like be in the position I am. But yeah, it would be rough for a bit.
Yeah. And you know what, dude? I didn't really used to think too much. I used to kind of scoff when people used to say this, like, things happen for a reason. Bro, some things have fucking happened that I'm like, holy shit, maybe. Maybe. But shit, dude, it just might, that just might be the case. And, when those certain doors close, dude, the opportunities that come along, on the other side, with different doors opening, sometimes you have to fucking kick those doors open.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge believer of creating your own opportunities rather than waiting for them
Right.
to, happen. But like, point being, when like something's taken away from you, like when a certain door closes, that's not the end. There's always like another opportunity for you to like to take advantage of,
Yeah. The way I see it is like nothing happens for a reason. You have to create those reasons.
Yeah.
Like you have to create purpose out of it. And
Sure.
I think it's a lot more in people's hands than they realize. Just like
Yeah.
yeah, because like things happen all the time. Things are always happening, and none of it's special. Unless you make it special and like give it reason to be special and make purpose out of it.
I love that. That's beautifully put. I love that a lot.
Possibly hot take, but I think
dude.
I think that way of thinking has helped me a lot more than just saying, well, it happens for a reason. It's whatever.
And I feel like saying it happens for a reason, it's almost kind of like an out, right? It almost kind of feels like an excuse,
Yeah, it's I think it's like kind of like dismissive, like not, I don't know. It's just the universe, like things are happening all the time. Like,
yeah,
there doesn't have to be a reason for it.
totally, totally, absolutely. Yeah, dude. Let's talk about emotions influencing our arts and how that translates to our audience. Let me start here. What's your relationship like with your emotions?
My relationship with my emotions has been very up and down throughout my life. It's taken a lot of therapy to be more in touch with the way I feel and more connected to myself and honest with myself. it's taken different forms of therapy to get there. Cognitive behavioral therapy has been huge for me in like strengthening that relation with my own emotions and like being more in touch with them. And it's been very up and down, especially with like, having like dissociation and like dissociative symptoms. You can feel very out of touch with who you are and your own emotions. So that on top of like having, anxiety issues like I have, it's been a very up and down kind of connection with my own emotions, but I'm very glad that it's happened the way it has, because I've learned so much about myself from struggling with that connection for so long. And it's something like having that disconnect, like when you do have it, it's, you want nothing more than to just be like normal, to just like experience things how everyone else experiences it. But yeah, I've finally gotten to a place over like a long time in therapy, like that I feel more in touch and like more in tune with, how I'm actually doing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I respect that, dude. I completely respect that. And let's take it a step further. With all that being said, how comfortable are you with yourself when, you're laying in bed, the lights are off, and all you're hearing are your thoughts in your head?
It's a really good question. It's in addition to ringing in my ears because I have tinnitus. So it's not just the thoughts in my head, it's that too, a little bit.
Yeah.
I sleep with a fan on, so it's also that. It really depends on like what's going on at the moment in my life. But cognitive behavioral therapy has made me much more at ease with my own thoughts, because it is entirely focused on the way you're thinking and how that affects your behavior. Kind of just not letting the thoughts just like eat you up, like really picking them apart when you have we call them junk thoughts in therapy, and like you can categorize them into, different buckets. Really being able to sit with your thoughts and break them down like that when they're like negative thoughts is like extremely powerful. And it is the difference between me lying awake at night, like spiraling, and being able to breathe through it and, sleep. I'm on such a great sleep schedule now. I can fall asleep so quick.
Good.
And, it's a combination of the way you process your thoughts and also just breathing through it, and like, the way that relaxes your central nervous system and all that. Yeah.
For sure, dude. Yeah, and I'll be honest, those thoughts sometimes get the best of me. I have a lot of loud thoughts in conversations with myself inside my head, especially when I'm alone. And a lot of the times, like, that's when like I'm cooking up, my master plans, right? And it's great. But there's also a lot of times where, holy shit, man, like I become like the butcher, and I'm just like slaughtering myself until I fall asleep. And that's how bad it can get sometimes, but you know what though, I tend to use those moments as a paintbrush, and I create,
Yeah, there's a lot you could pull from it.
Yeah, dude, and, madness can sometimes be the path to truth.
Definitely is.
Yeah, dude. And, I guess, like, how do you utilize those emotions for your art?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a direct funnel into the art. There wouldn't be, I wouldn't make a piece of music unless it was like a funnel like that, or it wouldn't feel genuine. Like the immune stuff is like very angry. Like it's all like, most of it is like very, I'm sure with your own music, it's similar. It's,
That's why we're friends. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But giving that giving that outlet and that funnel into music it's the best thing ever. And I think it's why metal is so like awesome, because you can have the way it sounds match the emotions you're feeling. I feel like there could be such a disconnect in some genres where like the song would be really angry and it sounds like, kind of like happy and like upbeat. And it just, with metal, I don't, there's less of that like disconnect. Like the music and the tones you get and the way you play your instruments, like it's all different facets of how you feel and like expressing that through different ways, like making the guitar like scream, or like having effects that like, sound like anxiety and anger, like you can really sort of mirror your thoughts through music. You don't even need like words. You could do it like with an instrumental song too,
Totally. And, you mentioned the whole thing, like with therapy, getting to a certain point, to feel a bit, more comfortable and stuff like that. Do you sometimes dig back to those old thoughts in order to create, some of the immune stuff? Or do you use any of that as fuel to create just art in general?
Yeah, all of it. Like if I'm struggling with like a particular topic, like that's going to be a song. Like anything that I've made into a song has been like, something that I've just not been able to like drop. The things that like really bounce around in your head, like no matter how much you try like to cope with it, I feel like those make the best songs a lot of the time, because you have a lot to say about it. And it doesn't even have to be like anger or anxiety. Like it could be, like happier songs too. Like anything that has emotion attached to it that's really like bouncing around in your head, like you're gonna have a lot to say about it.
Dude, totally. And when you do that, do you create like a safety net for yourself when you go back and access those emotions in order to protect yourself from falling into a place where you don't want to be again?
That's a great question. It really it depends on what the exact thoughts are, because there is some stuff that like is very hard to access without putting myself right back where I started with certain things. And then with most of it though, I've been able to cope and process it in a way where I can access those feelings without setting myself back mentally. Yeah. It's an interesting distinction to make, because you're channeling emotions in both scenarios, but it's more so like the way you feel after you record the vocals, or after you write down those lyrics. Like after putting yourself back in those shoes, do you feel like you've regressed to where you started, or do you still feel like the present version of yourself? And I think that's entirely dependent on how deeply you've been able to process those feelings, and that specific like subject.
Sure. And maybe the creation process can still be painful, but like when it's done, maybe there's that, that exhale, that relief.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what it was like for the last music video we did. But and these past is something that I've learned, these past 2-3 years, is that anger and spite are some of the most powerful sources of motivation when used correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if used correctly and safely. Because if you're not careful, you'll burn yourself down. You'll burn yourself to the ground, guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've achieved so much in these past 2 years, like from those two emotions alone. But the challenge is knowing, what do you do when that flame burns out? Because it'll eventually burn out. You can't let anger be your master.
Right.
The key is to turn that motivation into discipline. And that's something I'm in the middle of figuring out, you know, and that method isn't for everyone, and it shouldn't be. But mainly because it's way too easy to fall off the deep end, right? But yeah, dude, that's been such a powerful tool for me. It's almost kind of like a drug, bro. Like anger and spite is almost kind of like a drug where like it feels so good when you're using it to further yourself. I mean, ethically, let's make that part very clear.
It leads to results. It leads to change because it's stuff that you're passionate about changing. Like if I'm, angry that I feel the way I feel, which I was for a long time, you work to change it. I think that ties into like what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, dude, like we talked about, using emotions like towards the music and everything like that, your relationship with emotions and stuff. How do you feel about, other people seeing your emotions? Like not even from an artistic standpoint, just like day to day.
I love it. I want people to like know how I'm feeling. If it's people that I, like if it's people I'm comfortable being open with, which is like anyone on Instagram and like my friends, like I want people to know the stuff that I want to get out there, Right. It feels so good to do that. I feel like there's a lot of hesitation with people to be open with their friends and family, and I just think it's so powerful when it's people that you're comfortable with to be open and vulnerable like that.
Yeah, dude. And honestly, I've learned pretty quickly that vulnerability prevails. You know what I mean? I love it. And vulnerability is like the key to great music too, I feel like.
It's humanity. It's like the difference between us and like a robot is the vulnerability and like feeling stuff.
Well, and you touched on it, like especially in metal music, right? Because I think music is like the most popular medium of arts where people express the most emotion, and it does a good job of bringing out the truth in a way that might be difficult to communicate in normal conversation, but it's also like very healing for both parties, the artist and the listener. So I mean, right, the listener can interpret it in many different ways that fit them, and that's healing for them. And let me ask you this, like when you heal from a scar that influenced a song, how does that affect the effort involved in performing that song later down the road?
It's hard to say because I don't really perform my music, but I think if I did, it would make it easier to perform without like getting overly emotional and stuff.
Sure.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. The closest thing I can experience with that is like, redoing like one of my songs like for Instagram, like doing a video of it or something.
Yeah.
And that's the closest thing I have to like performing them. And
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I know there's musicians who like to channel that emotion again. I especially like during like performance, for performance reasons. But something that they've told me, it's controlled at that point. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like they know how to bring it out, let it play for a while, but then box it back up and put it away.
Yeah.
I don't think I've learned that skill yet, but because to be fair, dude, like to your point, like I haven't really gone out and like really performed my music yet, and I know there's going to be a point like down the road when I look back at these songs and be like, okay, like I'm not there anymore, which is fine, right? That's expected. And it's like, I'm almost kind of curious because like I go hard. Like when I do perform, like dude, I go fucking hard, and like a lot of that comes from like the emotion that I was feeling in that song. Like I let it take over. So So I'm just curious, just kind of like, how do I channel that when it's necessary? And how do I put that away when it needs to be put away?
Yeah, that's tough. I feel like there's always going to be space between, the actual like creating of the song and performing it. And there's going to be space in that time to like, not like distance yourself from it, but like sort of, like you said, like heal the scars from it.
Right.
I think a lot of, a lot of artists will like put on a show. So it seems like it's more, it seems like they're more connected to it than they might actually feel. Like an artist performing something that they wrote like 10 years ago and performing it like super emotionally. It's hard to like say, like it's hard to tell, because their goal is to put on a show and really like entertain, so it's so hard to say with other people unless you ask them, as opposed to just like watching a band and like, they're going all out and it's like, it feels like it just happened to them,
Yeah, I mean, psychologically, it can be a little bit of a mind fuck too, because it's like, okay, like if you've healed and moved on from something, like, is it okay to give yourself permission to go back and visit it, like, observe it, Yeah. Or is the process of moving on, not really having to go back again to observe?
I don't think it's that. I think it's like there's ways to go back healthily and like from a different lens, instead of putting yourself directly back in that same like way of thinking and feeling. I think there's no shame in going back, because that's not what healing from things is. It's not like repressing it and putting it in a box forever. You know what I mean? It's like integrating it as a part of who you are.
Yeah. That's a great point. That's absolutely a great point. And yeah, I feel that. Well, shift gears a little bit here. What drives you to reach the dream that you and I were talking about last episode?
The dream of like basically like mixing and multimedia stuff. I think that's what I was saying last time, because that's the stuff I'm like passionate about. I mean, I have like a drive to do the stuff I love doing and like the stuff that makes me happy, and I put a lot of emphasis on how work makes you feel. Like I wouldn't just work a job that I hate for a long time unless I like really had to, or like was in a really bad place. But yeah, I think that's the biggest motivator. It's just like you don't want to have regrets when you look back too. You want to look back and just be like, man, like I did what I love doing, and I wouldn't change that. I think that's the greatest motivator there is, really, is not wanting to have regret later.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Yeah, dude. And like for me, like the motivation, I guess, you can like boil it down to like being afraid to fail, I guess. But for me, I think it goes a little bit more deeper than that. I think it goes into more of purpose of life, because I mean, I asked you this before. I've asked a lot of people this, like, what are you afraid of? If I were to flip that on me, like, I really think, what I'm afraid of, it's like not being able to tell my stories to a grand audience, you know what I mean? And as of right now, that's with the band, right? Not being able to like really show that off. And I would like for that to be, be successful in that, to have a career in that. But I mean, success means a lot of different things to many different people. But my point is, it's like, if I'm not able to do that, then I start questioning, like, then what the fuck's my purpose in life?
Right.
It's like, then what am I even doing here? If you know, like, why am I even alive? That type of thing, like that is a scary thing for me.
Yeah.
Not being able to do what I feel like I was put on this earth to do.
No, that's some real shit. And like nobody really has like an answer for like, you know, the purpose of everything. It's more like, it's so individual. It's so
Right.
like, what do you want out of life? What do you want to feel out of life? And then doing things that, you know, allow you to experience that.
Yeah.
As opposed to like the actual things themselves or like the actual goals. It's more like, how do you want your experience to like feel like, you know, because that like when you look back on everything later, you're going to feel a certain way rather than remember every single thing you ever did.
Sure.
So it's kind of like doing things that will make you feel good about it later.
Yeah. And you know what I've learned from doing these podcasts? I've learned that success means very different things to different artists.
Oh, yeah.
Being successful at our genre is all about the long game. You know, what you put in is going to take a long time before you see the payoff from it. You know? Which in a way is kind of healing to heal. I mean, healing to hear, you know? Another thing that I learned is living the dream and struggling can coexist.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until, honestly, probably these past few months. Like,
I mean,
talking with these people.
struggle it's a part of life, you know?
Yeah.
It would be weird if you weren't struggling with anything. I feel like I would be like uneasy if there was nothing I was, you know, suffering from in some way or struggling with.
Yeah. I agree with you there, man. Fuck, like what's like what, the end dream paradise? Does that exist? That's an unrealistic dream to have, right? I mean, everything's gonna be, it's a pendulum, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of goes back to what we're talking about earlier. Like, it's something that I've kind of like scared myself about too. It's like, okay, what if I do reach a point where I have succeeded in achieving my dreams? What's the pendulum swing from that? You know what I mean? Like, securing it. Like, I want to secure it. It's like, I don't want anybody or any life situation to be able just to take that away from me. How do I, you know, get to a point where like I'm building such a great foundation around myself where it's like, if I were something like that to happen, it's not fucking breaking down everything, you know?
Right.
That scares me too.
No, that's like very, very valid. I think that there always has to be balance in some way, but having that like landing pad is yeah, it seems like it takes a lot to build that up. Like success does mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but I feel like that is a good indicator of having succeeded, whatever that means.
Right.
Is still being able to feel like you really like did something, like even when shit does go wrong.
Yeah. And I guess, like, when do you know to pivot? Like, when do you know, like, you know, what I'm doing right now is not working. I need to fucking pivot.
I don't know. I wish I had a definitive answer to that. It's really like, it's so individual and like specific to the exact thing you're working on. You know, you want to give something all you got if it's something you really believe in, you know, and you know, whether that's 5 years or 10 years of working at something, you know, it's really up to how much you're willing to do and how much you're willing to change what you're doing to adapt if it's not working. It's a big part of it. If you're doing the same thing and it's not working for a long time, then it's, you know, maybe you have to be open to changing something about it or doing something in a similar ballpark.
I don't know if you're the type of guy who is pretty big about figuring out like what your legacy is and like wanting to leave a legacy behind. Do you often think about that? And if so, what do you want your legacy to be?
That's a great question. I think it's really less about how other people see me and more like what I feel like I did. Which I guess isn't as much of like your traditional definition of like a legacy, but it's more like what I want to leave behind. And I just want to like inspire above all else, and I want people to like just see what I'm doing and take something valuable from it, like anything valuable at all, to help them in their own lives. I feel like that's like the overarching goal I have, you know, in whatever I'm doing, is for people to get value out of the things that I do. And that can mean so many things, which is great because I can do a lot of things that people might find value in. But I don't know, like in terms of people looking back on that as my legacy, it doesn't really work like that because I can't control how other people look back on me. But I can control what people take from, you know, what I'm doing. So it's more like the impact I want to have on people as opposed to like a legacy that I want to leave behind. I feel like it's more realistic to think of it in that way almost because you have a lot more control over that.
Sure. And I guess let's get a little bit more specific here. Like, what is like something that you want to leave behind?
Man, I haven't given any thought to that ever. You know?
Like, do you care, like, if you're like dead for 50 years, 100 years, the times that pass, like, do you care if people like remember like a piece that you did or remember you or remember anything? Like, does that matter to you?
Just like remember that I was a good guy.
There you go.
Just like being like a good dude, like, you know? But like it's not realistic to expect people to remember you for like hundreds of years after you're gone. But like as long as there's like positive connotation to my name, I feel like I feel it's such like a vague thing, but that's it.
For sure, dude.
What about you? I'm gonna turn it right back on you.
Yeah, dude. You know, legacy is a huge thing for me, you know, and a lot of that is because like I know the sacrifices that my family, my parents, my grandparents have made for me to have the opportunities that I have, you know. A lot my grandparents and my great grandparents weren't from the United States, you know. And so I know when they came over here, their lives weren't great, you know. Then when they had my parents, I know the sacrifices they made for me, you know.
Right.
And so I feel like the least I can do is make our name known. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the biggest things that motivates me to get out of bed every day, you know?
Right.
That's what I was saying about, you know, my stories reaching a grand audience, you know, that, you know, being in the band and everything. The legacy I would like to leave behind is I would like to be, whatever I do, whether it's a piece of music, whether it's like something I film or whatever it may be, I would love for that to be remembered and maybe, you know, inspire future art pieces. You know?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, dude. I'm not saying I have to be in a fucking history book, but, you know, music history book or anything like that. But it'd be great knowing that, because, I mean, fuck, let's even back up a little bit. Like, even while I'm still here, I would love to get, you know, to a point where it's like my art is motivating a kid or somebody not to fucking kill themselves, you know?
Yeah.
I would love my art to inspire somebody to get out of bed every morning and to do the thing, whether it's like get through school, get through the work day. You know what I mean? Like I would love to be that for somebody. I don't know if I'm that now. I want to be. Who knows? Maybe I am. But that's definitely a goal for my career as an artist. And
no, that's fantastic. Like being told that as an artist must be like the greatest feeling ever,
Right, dude. Because, dude, it's interesting because it's almost like there's kind of a responsibility there. Like no one's telling you that.
Right,
We have that responsibility, but what we do is fucking powerful, dude. It is absolutely powerful. And it's sometimes hard to like understand that because fuck, I'm just here sitting in my goddamn house, right, and just like struggling to write shit, fucking whatever, and like when it comes out, dude, the way that hits people is no way how you think it really is. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's great. It's great. I fully take on that responsibility. You know, I love that because I know how powerful that's been for me.
Right.
For other bands,
Yeah, I mean, like it's funny, like with Periphery, like their music has had such a huge impact on people in that way, and they're kind of just like we're just like having fun, like we're just doing our thing, like that impact is you can never fully understand it when you're creating something,
Yeah, and too, it's kind of like it's definitely a form of therapy. It's definitely we talked about it earlier, but saying something where you can't really say in a regular conversation, right? I feel like there's many. I think that's what like really hits like the listeners. Like they're feeling something, they don't know how to express it, and once they hear it in a song, it's like that's exactly how I'm feeling. That like I can finally share how I'm feeling with somebody. I can communicate that now because of like this song.
Yeah,
I've had that, dude.
No, totally.
I've experienced that, and fuck, dude. That's why I feel like it's a great responsibility to have. Like for me, like I said, I fully welcome that, and I guess that's why it kind of also translates to the legacy thing, because like if I could still be doing that when I'm no longer alive.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah, that's man, that would be incredible, like to leave that behind,
Right. And I fully understand I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? Like
but the thing is, you don't know that. You can't know that unless you're not here. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess like what I mean though is like I feel like maybe I haven't written anything yet, or let me rephrase that. I haven't released anything yet. Probably that's been that for somebody, or maybe.
Yeah, I mean, people listen to shit that I put out like almost a decade ago that I think sucks, and they'll be like, yo, like, this is like amazing. Like, I really like love this song. Like, there's just no way to know how your music is going to impact people now or later on.
Yeah, dude. Again, which is why like I've battled with myself on like, yeah, should I take off the old shit? You know what I mean? Or keep it. Who knows what it's doing for somebody?
Yeah.
Man, it's such a weird feeling too, dude.
It really is.
It is, like, especially like looking back at old pieces of art where it's like, dude, I am way better than this now. It's like almost like I don't want people to see this side of me.
Yeah, it's definitely like an insecurity thing for me. I think more than anything else. Like, I feel like that is almost bigger than like thinking about like what people might take from it. Is just like, I don't want like this side of my art out in the world because I don't feel like it's part of me now.
Sure.
But a lot of people like are probably against that, and I don't know. It is like such a weird feeling.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, like something even kind of like I'm struggling with right now, like the stuff that I write, is very much. I even feel like it's kind of hard to categorize ourselves like genre wise. Like I just been saying, all right, fine, we're a deathcore band, but like we're definitely not your traditional deathcore band. Like, you know what I mean? We don't have those fucking brutal like breakdowns, right? That have like all the YouTube reactors like fucking going crazy, right? You know. But I mean, I'm not a breakdown guy. Like I don't write breakdown like crazy ass breakdowns like naturally. Like I really have to think about if I want to do something like that. And like sometimes I wonder, I'm like, am I fucking myself by not doing that? You know what I mean? Like, am I fucking myself like by not? I don't know. Like it's weird, but like to what you said, being genuine, right? Like writing something not because you're trying to get a specific reaction from somebody or show off or something. It's like what's
right.
like, genuine to you here.
Yeah, you make the music that you want to hear. Like, make the music that you wish existed already, you know? That's like the best way to do it.
But, you know, at the same time, at least like for me, I do look at all my stuff as like game film. You know what I mean? I'll analyze the hell out of it, just like criticize the hell out of it and just like understand what I want to do differently, which is
right.
kind of cool about like what we're doing in the sense of like we haven't written an album, and I don't see us writing an album anytime soon either. Like I love the fact of like coming out with all right, 3 songs here, 2 songs there, another 2 songs, you know what I mean? Because it's like, let me know your thoughts on this, but like I feel like when you're writing an album or something, like you're in a mindset, and I don't really think you get out of that specific mindset until it's like done. Like regardless of like how many songs you're writing for this album, you're still within that creative headspace. You know, where I feel like for me, like when I've written 3 songs for this EP, I can like, you know, get out of that mindset, like, you know, and I'm already like thinking of like different things in my head for the next thing, like a different project. My style will change, like guitar wise, vocal wise, and just creatively, you know, like it gives me that freedom to keep showing something different, you know?
Yeah, I think that's like one of the best parts about being like independent as an artist too. You're not part of a contract, like make this many albums and we'll pay you this much, you know?
Right.
I feel like that takes away a lot of that like spontaneity that just naturally exists with people.
Right.
You know, like albums can like change mindsets like in the same body of music. But yeah, no, I see what you mean. Like it's all in the same sort of like time period or universe, you know?
Right. And you know, that kind of circles back to the very first thing I said at the beginning of, you know, this episode. It's doing that in this day and age, especially when like you're really seeing stuff when you first form as a band, you know, people are seeing you from infancy pretty much. They're seeing the growth process, which can be, again, a very scary thing that might like it still kind of sometimes gets to me a little bit, right? Because I mean, a lot of like my top two favorite bands, Slipknot and Deftones, like let's just look at Slipknot for a second. Like Slipknot, they have their debut album that came out in '99, right? They call that their debut album, but in reality they came out with 2, I think 1 record and 1 EP before that debut album. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
And it's like when you do, back then, like back in the 90s, like 90s and back, it almost feels like you discover a band and they were immediately fucking badass right from the get-go.
Right.
That's not fucking true, dude. You know what I mean? And I struggle with that. It's like, oh, these guys were already badass from the debut. These guys are already bad. But the Slipknot example, bro, they came out with 2 fucking releases, like a shitload of songs before the debut album, right? When they were under a record label. And it definitely doesn't sound like Slipknot. It definitely doesn't, you know what I mean?
Right.
But like, that's kind of like for me a little bit of the downside for like this day and age. Like people see that and it's more permanent.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're able, like back then, I think you were able to kind of hide behind the curtain a little bit, you know.
We also, they're, not having digital music
Yeah.
is, it must have been a completely different way of thinking.
Yeah.
Just only having physicals.
Yeah, well, not only that, right? Like they weren't able to really create things and release things as easily as we can today.
Right.
So, and that might be a direct translation to like, okay, well, shit, we have a lot more time to think about what the fuck we're actually doing. A lot more time to prepare. Whereas today, it just feels like, dude, you got to keep fucking releasing shit to be fucking relevant,
Yeah.
to keep growing.
Moves fast.
It's crazy. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button to stay on top of new episodes of Inside the Wounds.